welcome to another episode of Let's Talk on Win TV. We're streaming live for the first time on a new platform called Riverside. So bear with us. That's why we were a couple of minutes late, and we may have some hiccups along the way. But we're excited to test this new platform, and we'll see how it works for all of us. I'm Denise Rolak Barnes, your host and publisher of the Washington Informer, and I'm thrilled you joined us today as we kick off our conversation with guests who shaped the conversation in our community, the Washington Informer editorial team. We'll hear from them in a moment about recent news stories they've been covering, including their perspectives and everything in between that matters to you. Before we jump into our discussion, I want to share a few updates with you as you plan ahead. First up, as many of you know or may not know, but yesterday, April 16th, marked the 164th anniversary of Emancipation Day in the District of Columbia. It is a day celebrated annually on April 16 that commemorates the 1862 signing of the Compensated Emancipation Act by President Lincoln, which freed over 3,100 enslaved people in Washington, D.C. Now, the district also has the distinction of being the only part of the United States to have compensated owners of enslaved people for freeing them, which was required by law. So then, April 16th, or since then, April 16th has historically been the day of celebration held on Pennsylvania Avenue that features parades, concerts, and other activities. When on that day, when just like what do you call it? Watch night. You celebrate Watch Night because it brings in the new year. But for enslaved people, when Lincoln passed the Emancipation Proclamation, when Congress passed it and Lincoln signed it, enslaved people stayed up. They wanted to see freedom come. So April 16th is the day that enslaved people in the District of Columbia celebrated finally because they were freed, despite the fact that the president and Congress had offered these slave owners a certain amount of money per enslaved person. And I was reading something recently where they said there were no discounts for children or enslaved people who had mental illness or any of these other factors. Every slave was equal, which we were, or every enslaved person was equal. We're still trying to fight for equality. But at any rate, and Lincoln realized that experiment in the District of Columbia was not going to work across the entire United States. The Congress just did not have enough money to pay for the freedom of all of these enslaved folks. So the District of Columbia was a test case. People in the district celebrated that. But then, anyway, I won't get too deep into that part. I wish we had C.R. Gibbs here with us who could really dig deep into some of that information, and a couple of other historians here in the District of Columbia. But the D.C. City Council, under the leadership of then Ward 5 Council member Vincent Orange, resurrected this holiday, which it had laid dormant. People weren't celebrating Emancipation Day in the district for a long time. And they did it again and proclaimed it an official DC holiday, a day off for DC workers and students. So this year's Emancipation Day parade and concert are happening this Saturday at a new location. Well, it's not a new location. It's going to go back to Freedom Plaza. There were some commercials out there that said it was going to take place at I can't remember the other place, but it's going to take place now at Freedom Plaza, where it's always been, and it will take place on Sunday, April 19th. So make sure you get your items together, take the family, take your water, go out and have a good time and celebrate Emancipation Day with the guest starring concert performer T.I. Yes, T.I. will be out there. Maya's coming back home to DC to perform. It sounds like it's going to be a really, really great event. So make sure that you attend Emancipation Day on Sunday, April 19th. Okay. I got more for you. I'm coming with it as soon as I can find my little notes here because I had some notes for you all. Um, there will be also some candidates forums coming up next week. So keep an eye out. We'll be announcing those forums. We've got, as Sam Collins says, a bevy of candidates running for a slew of offices here in the District of Columbia. So the candidate forums are very, very important for you all to get out to and hear from the candidates. For those who are not who are undecided, we want to make sure that you at least get out there and hear from the candidates. And as a matter of fact, on Saturday, the Ward 5 Leadership Council and the DC Board of Elections are hosting an outreach and education summit at McKinley Technical High School over at 151 T Street Northeast. That's from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So the most important part, they're going to do a candidates forum as well, but if you want to know about rank choice voting, the whole morning will be focused on that. I know a lot of voters have a lot of questions, and when you go into the booth on on June 16, you want to make sure that you understand not only who to vote for, but how to vote. So hope to see you over there at McKinley High School. And looking ahead at next week, we're here celebrating Earth Day. But interestingly enough, Casey Trees and several other environmental groups, including the support of the Washington Informer, will be holding a DC Sustainability Candidates Forum at the Arc, located at 1901 Mississippi Avenue Southeast. So again, that forum will be held on Wednesday, April the 22nd, from 6:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. The doors open at 6, and it's a great opportunity to hear from the candidates about how they hope to get the District of Columbia ready to be. There's a term that the city's using, but in essence, it's sustainability free or sustainability prepared. I think the year is 2030. So we want to hear about that and get some more details. So that's a quick pick, a little, a few things that are going on in the week, and some things that have happened, and we hope that you will be able to participate and learn more and see us there because we will definitely be there to cover some of these events. So, in addition, I hope that you picked up your copy of this issue of the Washington Informer. I have several of them in front of me right now, but I hope you picked up your copy of this week's Washington Informer. Woohoo! Just want to show that to you. And if you have not, and I will just add that inside of this edition is our annual sustainability issue. We pride ourselves in being probably one of the only or a few African American owned newspapers that really focus on sustainability and environmental issues. So it's a great issue, some great information in there. We are protectors of the planet, each and every one of us. And so this issue gives us information, tips, things we can do to make sure that we are continue to protect the planet for generations to come. So if you can't get a print copy of the Informer, you can pull up the digital edition online by visiting our website at washingtoninformer.com. Just go to the website, and that way you can see the stories, you can see the digital edition of the publication, the insert, all of that. And while you're there, we invite you to become a subscriber by signing up on the website. The only thing we ask you to do is to give us your email address. And after that, we take it from there, and we want to make sure that we can keep you that's our job, Washington Informer, to keep you well informed of the news and information that impacts you here in the District of Columbia and nationally. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. So please be sure to share this broadcast on your social media platforms and follow us on Facebook, IG, X, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You name it, we're there. Trying to get back onto what is it? The neighborhood one. Y'all know because y'all have some great conversations over there. So we want to be a part of that as well. But anyway, we'll talk about that as soon as we are on. And also, Subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Washington Informer TV. No spaces, just Washington Informer TV. We love to have you as a part of the Washington Informer family. Okay, now we're going to turn to our guests. I call them the Informer family, the Washington Informer editorial team, who are with us to discuss this week's headlines and stories behind the headlines and issues that you care about. Managing editor Misha Green will be talking about the stories we've covered over the past few weeks and what you can expect to read in the days ahead, as well as some background on our sustainability issue. And senior reporter, national reporter, Stacey Brown, who covers national news and has his pulse on everything happening related to Congress and even the war in Iran, will kind of give us some updates on some of the stories he's been covering, as well as some local stories. And he just might share some news about the upcoming highly acclaimed biographical film Michael, starring Jafar Jackson, Michael's nephew, as the King of Pop. You know, that film is scheduled to be released on April the 24th, and it's been exciting to hear how this film has evolved. And we want to see how, Stacey can give us maybe some info on what we can expect. Uh, District Senior Reporter Sam P.K. Collins has been following and using his phrase, the bevy of candidates running for a slew of local offices in the district, and the drama that keeps unfolding as we approach the June 16 primary. That, by the way, will be the first election, as I said, the voters will participate in ranked choice voting. Prince George's reporter Richard Elliott will be on hand to update us on the elections in Prince George's County, and he may even be able to give us some insight on the data centers and what's happening, decisions that are impacting the growth of data centers in Prince George's County. And we're also pleased to introduce our intern, Keith Golden, a graduating senior at Howard University, who will share his journey at the Informer leading up to graduation in just a few weeks. But before we get started, the entire Washington Informer family wishes to extend our deepest, heartfelt condolences to the children and the family of Justin Fairfax. It was devastating to hear the news of the apparent murder suicide that left Justin and his wife Serena dead early Thursday morning. And that's all we're going to say about that as news continues to flow about what led to this tragic ending. But it's sad to hear the reports, and another reminder that we need to really pay close attention to mental health in our community, and particularly as folks are beginning to say now, the impact of mental health on Black men. So, having said that, let's get started. Misha, are you there?
Hello.
How are you?
I am well. How are you? I know I'm reporting from a very different site than normal. I'm at the Culture House in Southwest DC for a fabulous event called A Deep Breath. And it's really highlighting or giving, Black women a moment to take a deep breath. But in this moment that we've been navigating in these past 15 months, particularly how Black women have been affected. And so I'm learning a lot. I got to moderate a panel called Hold the Line that really talked about how women are navigating this time. How are we holding the line with a great group of experts, including a financial planner who talked about the intention tax, Blue Murphy, an amazing artivist who's doing great work here in DC with students and nationwide, and as well as a woman who had been affected by the federal employment challenges and lost her job. She worked for USAID and the pivot. So I'm super fired up here today and happy to be talking about what we've been up to at the Washington Informer.
Well, I want to say before we move on to the news that you also made news last night. You participated in a program where you got to tell a story, kind of like a moth hour storytelling. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, well, It was a great, great time. It was hosted by Story District in partnership with the Arts and Humanities DC and Washington Association of Black Journalists. It was called Behind the Headlines, which I loved because your intro just now, you said we're going to get behind the headlines of the stories. So that's what it was about. And it highlighted five Black journalists in our stories, how we have approached our careers in different times. But what I thought was a really interesting through line is how we navigate the world being both Black and journalists. And I think any person of color rather, can relate to we are Black people or we are brown people or we are whatever first, and then we have these roles. But we know professionalism can be a tug and a pull. And so, how do we really tap into our truth in our moments? And as journalists, all we do is truth telling, even though it's challenged at this moment. And so, it was a really, really great opportunity, a full house for us to share our stories with about 200 people. And I've already talked to the lead of Story District saying, all right, now a partnership with the Washington Informer. So
Love it.
hopefully more to come.
Right, right. Well, that's fantastic. I'm excited for you. You're busy. I mean, you're editing the paper and writing stories as well as, my dad, when he started the Informer, he used to call it the Involved Weekly. And so involved meaning not only are we covering, but we are engaged and involved in the community. So you certainly are fulfilling, that path that he paved for us. But let's talk a little bit.
Wait, before you ask your question, I just have to say, well, kudos to you because you're doing that in the most major way. Miss Congressional Black Caucus Foundation honoree last night, and I mean, community engagement is really what you've taught us, and the importance of that, and telling the stories. And I know we'll get into something, but I just want to uplift you always, and particularly with a specific example. And that is yesterday, we were in our weekly pitch meetings, and again, we'll get deeper into it later, but Sam P.K. Collins just did a piece on the hanging near 4th District. And we were a little leery because there's not a lot of facts surrounding it. And particularly as managing editor, I was leery because I'm the one who has to fact check. But our fearless publisher, Denise Roloff Barnes, said, this is a community story. And if the community finds it suspicious, no one else is ready to tackle it. The Washington Informer must tackle it. And so, again, thank you for always being that reminder of our responsibility and the work. Are really community reporters. And so, thank you for that.
Well, you came up with the term fearless journalist, and Sam P.K. Collins, who we'll be talking to in a little bit, is definitely one of those. So we will probably be talking to him about that situation as well.
Yes.
You kind of you build the paper, right? I mean, the reporters come to you, they tell you the stories that they have, photographs are given, but you build the paper. And so we're just looking at maybe the last 3 weeks because those are the last three editions that we put out, paper editions, although we're daily loading stories online. But if an organization were no, I shouldn't do that to you. I'm gonna say if an organization were to give us an award for the best story that we did in April, uh, uh, let's let them judge. We won't judge. But I some stories that really sort of, I'm sure, made you say this is something we hope people will pay attention to, and give us one or two of those.
Yeah. Well, first of all, so we've had three regular newspapers, but I have to shout out our team. We've had five editions in the past 3 weeks because we've also had our spelling bee and sustainability issues. And so, thank you again to this hardworking team. It's been a lot of important news, but I want to highlight Keith Golden Jr., who we'll get to hear from in a little bit, who has tackled Black maternal health 2 weeks in a row. The first was a last minute assignment because I realized we have to highlight Black Maternal Health Week before we even get into the week. and he jumped into it. And then the next week, he really was able to highlight some of the organizations doing the work here in the district. And so I want, because, it's just 1 week and we're celebrating the 10th anniversary this week of Black Maternal Health Week, but it ends today. And so I want to uplift not only Keith's work in these past two editions, but also the fact that we need to keep a pulse on that. And the Washington Informer is doing that beyond just April 11th through 17th. We are really making sure that we're telling the stories about health equity in general. And I think Jaron Hill Lockridge said it beautifully last week on Let's Talk, which is that Black maternal health is such a great way to enter into the equity conversation. And so that's something. I also want to big up our sustainability issue. We had, and this week's paper, it was really unapologetic about our earth, which is our environmental coverage. Sam P.K. Collins did a piece about the work happening for young people in the area to really appreciate sustainability work, and particularly as we're talking about the curfews and the challenges happening with our teens, giving young people something to do and something to care about in their environment. And then an artistic and, we're biased, but a writing opportunity to kind of talk about what they're doing is really great. So make sure you check that out. It's in partnership with Nature Wise and Anacostia High School. And then My True Hero, our amazing environmental writer, did a piece about the DC Sustainability Awards, which is in this week's Sustainability edition. And I have to shout out DeMarco Rush, who we were together last week at Bowie State University, engaging again with the young people there. And one booth next to us was an environmental booth, teaching people how to garden. And I go, DeMarco, can you do a story real quick on that for the sustainability issue? And he knocked it out the park. Nemus Gardens, teaching people how to not only grow their own gardens, but really be sustainable, particularly in this hard economic time. There are folks saying, now I can grow my own spinach, I can grow my own cabbage, and I'm not spending all that money. So, really amazing articles all around, but some great things to highlight in the past few weeks.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, gardening is a health equity issue as well.
Right.
Because if people begin to grow their own food, they know how it's grown, they know what pesticides they're consuming, because you still have to use them, and all of that. So it really does help. I look forward. I hope folks will go ahead and check out that sustainability issue. And congratulations. We're going to be talking to Keith in just a few minutes. I know that you're in the middle of your program, so I don't know if we should let you go. But I wanted to move on and talk to Stacy Brown for a few. Um,
Yes.
you can stay
Well,
on, or I'll bring him on.
yeah, bring him on, and I love you all, and thank you, and I'll try to hop back in. But I do want to big up Stacy Brown. I didn't want to ruin his moment because I knew he'd talk about it. But again, our breaking king at Washington Informer for sure. But this Justin Fairfax, thank you so much for your coverage. Not only did you have I think a more local and unapologetically Black mental health angle in your piece, but also, again, just being, knowing that it's a sensitive subject and really taking your time to do justice to it and continuing to keep a pulse on it. So thank you, Stacey. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Denise said it best. The mental health, we got to stop ignoring the signs of depression in black men, black women too, and these type of things. I know we don't want to go too far into that particular situation, but we certainly can't. We can't have the barbershop as our mental health advisor.
Interesting. Yeah,
Mm,
one of the things, Stacy and Misha, I have, I save a lot of stuff. I'm not one of those people, but I do save a lot of stuff. And I was looking the other day, and I saw an issue of Ebony magazine that I thought was just really special, and it was on the Black family.
Mm,
Like that's where that's where our subject, that's where our focus needs to go, because we focused on Black women. You know, we do a little on Black men. We don't really talk enough about Black children. We don't talk enough about seniors, so the grandparents. We maybe need to really do a refocus on the family, because every one of those um, individuals within the family are struggling with mental health issues and other kinds of issues. But
Hmm.
the family is the support group. And so
yeah.
if one person's sick, everybody is affected, right? So, anyway, just something to look for. I think we should focus on as we move into the end of 2026 and into 2027. We should reclaim the Black family.
So, guys, I just want y'all to know that those were marching orders for me as well. So, I'm over here getting my pen and pad out to make sure to make sure we do that. But you're so right. That's it's so important. And I just want to quickly add one thing that was noted here today at this deep breath event, which is that we talk like you said about Black women or Black men being affected, but then we don't realize the fact that it is a domino effect, and so the whole Black family is being affected. Whether it's health equity, whether it's economic opportunity, whatever it may be, we're all suffering or benefiting in these moments.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
So, Stacy, you have been on it. You been covering a lot about, some activities with our Attorney General, some of the legislation that he has, not legislation, but rulings that have
Hmm.
impacted DC residents and a couple of others. So, I mean, if you were to pick sort of two of your, I think not only your favorite, but you think most impactful stories over the last 3 weeks, what would they be?
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned the Attorney General. That has to be there. The Live Nation story. I know that the district Attorney General, Brian Swab, he has been front and center with that as much as any other Attorney General, I should say, not district attorney. Did I say district attorney? But regardless, you knew what I meant. But he's been front and center with that. And they had, Denise, they had offered a settlement not long ago in DC, the DC Attorney General, and believe about 30 other attorneys general were said no, no, we will take this to trial. We feel like we're going to win this, and it's in the best interest of the consumer. And people might say, well, it's entertainment. It's we're talking about ticket prices and ticket sales and things of that nature. But when you look at it, and what we face, gas prices, egg prices, all these, everything is so expensive and almost unattainable that these little wins, and you might consider it a little win, these are important. These are important to our pocketbooks. We know that one of the escapes from all of the things that ail us today, whether it's politically or otherwise, we know that the escape is entertainment. And Brian Schwab and 34 other attorneys general work to protect us there with the Live Nation and Ticketmaster lawsuit. So I think that was a very important story.
What else do you think? I mean, I know you've done stuff on the misclassification of workers,
Hmm.
who didn't get the pay that they were deserved because of some hanky panky
Hmm.
with a couple of these contracting companies. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah. But I'll take it a little further, though, Denise. I think when you talk about impact, you look at these nonprofits, black led and black owned nonprofits, where they were told essentially, well, not essentially, I'll just put it plainly. They were told to drop black from their description, drop anything related to ethnicity to their description. If you're the black this or the African American this or that or Latino, you were not getting any nonprofit money. And of course, this is under Donald Trump. And so there was a report that was put out that showed how much black owned and black led nonprofits have lost and how they're struggling because of these, new rules, these this anti DNI. And so we reported on that this past week. We talked to the Association of Black Foundation Executives, ABFE, and as Susan Taylor Batten said, being black isn't illegal, um, and it shouldn't be, uh, handled in a way that which people feel like it's illegal. We can't do business with you because it says black. There's a report called Holding the Line: Black Led Nonprofits and Race Explicit Work Amid Backlash. That report, I think folks should really dig into because it really uh, underscores everything that we've been experiencing over the past year and a half since this administration took over with the assault on everything black.
Well, it's we heard the same story with regards to the Afro newspaper, as it related to advertising. They were told they would need to change their name. I mean, these are names that have been documented in history forever. I mean, you can change things, but then it doesn't. It's changing your whole identity. It's
Hmm.
like me not you telling me not to call you Stacy Brown anymore. I mean, tell me that. But it's to me, I just, I'm glad you did that story. I understand the organization will be meeting this week if they haven't met
Yes,
already in, is it in San Francisco?
it's in San Francisco. Yes.
Right, right, right. Well, Capitol Hill, the Congressional
Hmm.
Black Caucus Foundation celebrated their 50th anniversary last night. Misha mentioned that. Several members of the CBC were there, but there's some members that aren't returning, planning to return to the Congress this year. Any word? Well, Eleanor, our own Congresswoman, is not returning.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think that has to do not only with the makeup but the impact of Black legislators in the House, particularly?
Hmm.
We have a couple in the Senate.
Well, also there's Jasmine Crockett out of Texas, right? She's not returning. She ran for higher office, she didn't win, and she's going back into the legal field. She's gonna practice law. That's a huge loss. People say that, she has her detractors, but the one thing that Jasmine Crockett taught the CBC, those who needed to be taught, and there was plenty who needed to be taught, that the idea of speaking truth to power had not, the time for that had not expired, and she continues to do that. We can say all we want about Delegate Norton being older, and it's time for the new guard, and it's true, it is time for the new guard, but that wisdom and that love more than anything else that she has for the district is not easy to replace. You can replace her. You can replace what she's done in Congress on behalf of DC. They're limited in what they can do anyway, but you're not going to replace that love that she genuinely has and that desire for statehood. It has not just been talk. It's been something that Eleanor Holmes Norton has lived and has really desperately fought for against even her own party at times.
Hmm.
So it's going to be hard to replace that.
Well, I want to bring Sam in now because Sam's been covering the DC elections, and it's become a firestorm, particularly relating to the two individuals that are running for Eleanor's seat. And Sam, welcome. And why don't we start there? I mean, I know you've got some 411 on that part of the election. Talk to us.
No question. Peace and blessings, y'all. First of all, and the race. Uh, I would say before last week, it was a two-person race mainly between DC Council member Robert White and DC Council member Brooke Pinto. Brooke Pinto's campaign, they released a 67-page document that pretty much outlined the more personal aspects of Robert White's life, including facts about his father, his wife, his older brother, and even a picture of their Northwest residence. So, you know, long story short, the document in question elicited a lot of pushback. People were incensed. They were angry. Robert White himself, he came out the next day and he called for Brooke Pinto to drop out of the race. And Brooke Pinto, in response, she apologized and she uploaded a different version of the document that did not have the personal aspects of Robert White's life, but instead spoke to legislation that he passed, his stance on certain political topics, and even um, who visited him as far as lobbyists when he was in his work on the housing committee. But according to the people I've spoken with, this doesn't look good at all for Councilmember Pinto. Um, at one point, it was a two-person race. It could have been anybody's race, and I'm not one to predict the future. I don't have a crystal ball, but this has sort of endeared the public more to Robert White as a representative for DC on the Hill. Robert White already had his experience as a staffer in Delegate Norton's office, and in the weeks before the doxing by the Pinto campaign, Councilmember Pinto had to answer for photos that surfaced years ago with her at a party at Mar-a-Lago, and there was also previous reporting done. Yes, yes, there were Instagram photos years ago around the time when she ran for the Ward 2 council seat about her, her partying at Mar-a-Lago, and she recently answered for that. She tried to explain it away, but in addition to that, and also what's been described as her courting of Republican donors. So there's a concern that even though she's registered as a Democrat, that if elected to represent DC on the Hill, she might court the more conservative red elements of the legislator to the detriment of DC, which is why, for the time being, and again, I'm not making any predictions, there is a bit more support, at least online, for Robert White, who was the victim of doxing earlier this week.
Stacy, have you, I mean, because you cover the Hill, I mean, and we are the District of Columbia. We are the home, well, I don't know now because he spent most of his time in Florida, but usually, the temporary home of the President of the United States. But how much attention are folks paying to our election
Yeah, it's a
legislature?
great it's a great question. I dare say that the DC election is more interesting to DC people than outside of DC. I think we don't see a whole lot of attention being paid to it. But I do have a question. Maybe Sam can help with. You mentioned what's going on there, and her courting or being at Mar-a-Lago and courting the conservatives. We seem to have a lot more. In fact, I dare say that I rarely see, if ever, Republicans making that devious switch. I'm a Republican, but I'm really a Democrat. We saw it with Joe Manchin, the alleged Democrat that really was a Republican. That's took the sheets off his head. We see it with John Fetterman in Pennsylvania. Is she the only one on DC City Council that you could see that with?
I wouldn't say so. What I'll say is that plenty of candidates in the history of home rule have made the transition from independent to Democrat. We had a couple of Republicans, from what I can recall, but DC is a Democratic city. So what voters, journalists often do, they look at the spectrum of politicians within that. So within the Democratic Party, you have your progressives, and then you have your moderates slash conservatives. So there are some people who liken Chairman Mendelson, for example, they liken him to Dwight Eisenhower. They call him an Eisenhower Democrat because of his what they call moderation. Sometimes he leans center to the right in some respects. There are other members of the council who are more law and order, more concerned with about protecting businesses, things of that nature. And then you have other members of the council who are more progressive, so public spending on benefits, things like that. But nothing
It's
as overt as just changing parties and you know
yeah.
Can't
Well,
tell
they,
you
you
that.
know, Manchin and Fetterman, for instance, they didn't change parties. They just voted along with the other party
Oh
almost
yeah,
100% of the time. So,
no question, no question. But you do have members of the council who take on uh, more conservative positions, depending on the topic.
yeah.
I'll say
Well,
that.
that's a concern, especially now with what's going on, what's been going on. I know a lot of people have raised those concerns. You talk to people in the street, you talk to even people on Capitol Hill and other lawmakers. They are very concerned that there are other John Fettermans, there are other Joe Manchins out there.
Well, I think the big issue that I want Sam also to talk about is that Mayor Bowser has released her last budget as mayor for the District of Columbia. And a lot of what we see in cuts and what have you are really based upon those people in Congress, who are going to have to approve this budget, and that man in the White House who's going to have to sign off on our budget. So, Sam, can you just share some highlights with us about, what people need to see? I know she's having budget hearings across a budget conversation, I guess I'll say, across the city. And I don't know how much people really pay attention. It's not until they realize they're not getting money for something that they're angry. But this is where we are right now. So talk about the mayor's budget.
No problem. The budget, her last budget as mayor, is themed "Running Through the Tape," and Mayor Bowser in her budget proposal has included dental and vision coverage back into Medicaid and the Alliance healthcare coverage for those who are under that. She has cut back on TANF employment assistance programs. She has also cut back on paid leave for DC employees, not DC government employees, but DC private employees. And she has also cut back on pay raises for unionized DC government workers. So your teachers and whoever else are DC government workers. Um, Undercuts, a major cut includes the defunding of the pay equity fund that has allowed early child care centers to pay qualified early childhood educators a competitive wage. And that has caused a lot of controversy. The mayor's office is very adamant that that fund has not um, has not been profitable, or not profitable, has not been effective in expanding early childhood education. It has not been effective in driving down the prices of daycares in the district compared to Maryland and Virginia. So that's a fight that we're going to see unfold throughout the next 50 days or so as the council takes a couple of hits at the budget to reallocate numbers to services and things of that nature. But Mayor Bowser is focused on um, increasing future revenue growth. She's very mindful that despite the district's relatively positive economic situation, that revenue growth has um, been slower than in recent years. We're still coming out of the pandemic, and of course, with the federal government shrinking, thanks to Donald Trump and Doge, she wants to make the pivot to other industries that'll bring jobs. So we're looking at tax breaks for people who purchase federal government buildings to use for development. We're looking at attracting more AI, more technologies. We're looking at investments into the Advanced Technical Center, through which high school students can get certifications in tech, in nursing, and other industries. So, quite a lot to look at over the next 50 days or so. But one more point I do want to bring up: there's $180 million that's on the table. The CFO, Glenn Lee, has not approved those funds. That was because of the decoupling situation that Congress blocked not too long ago. So there's quite a fight about whether those funds will be included in the budget. And if they are, Mayor Bowser wants to use it to fund the pay raises for the unionized DC government workers, along with some other contingencies.
Well, I'd love to dig a little bit deeper into that. But I want to bring on, if Richard is here, I'd like to bring Richard Elliott on because you mentioned tech centers. And I know there's a big election taking place in in Prince George's County in Maryland. But if I'm not mistaken, Richard, there was just a recent decision on the data center in Prince George's. Is that correct? And I know Richard's having some talking about tech, having some internet issues. So I don't think he's looking for an answer. I think his screen is stuck. So we will put him get back to him once he's available. And I also want to bring on Keith Golden, our intern. Misha talked a lot about what he's done with maternal health care. But I want to add him to a conversation, Sam, that is been somewhat controversial as well, and that is the curfew. The way to address these young kids who, are doing what they do, these meetups in places like um, uh, down at the wharf and Navy Yard and what have you, and the curfew. There's a lot of debate. I mean, people have different positions on that. And so I want you to talk a little bit about that. And I want Keith to chime in as well.
No, no question. So the mayor did reinstitute a curfew. So what happened was that on the 15th of April, the emergency curfew expired. The DC Council earlier this month, they opted to delay a vote on that. That would have, if it had passed, it would have extended the curfew 90 more days. But the DC Council instead opted to delay that vote. That vote will take place on Tuesday, April 21st. From my understanding, the DC Council will vote on the temporary legislation as well as a permanent bill that DC Councilmember Brooke Pinto advanced earlier this week through the DC Council's Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. So, quite a lot of conversation around the curfew's effectiveness. Brooke Pinto is very adamant about its use as one quote unquote tool in the toolbox. She wants to see investments in after school programming and late night programming. DPR did try that earlier this month down at the wharf at Greenleaf. Despite the success, they still had to wrangle up a handful of young people. But the debate continues about the curfew, about its usefulness, and more importantly, about gentrification, because people point to that as a result of or as a direct cause of the curfew, of the teen gatherings. There's a lot of concern that with the gentrification, these adult playgrounds, so to speak, um, are in competition with what young people want to do. And one of my stories actually said there's an advocate who spoke to the curfew as more as a means of appeasing the business class more so than controlling youth and ensuring their safety. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I mean, the sad thing too is we heard the news. I know I don't think we reported it, but we heard the news about a 12 and 14-year-old both killed over on, I believe, Minnesota Avenue in Northeast. But that was 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes.
And part of this curfew is also for the safety of kids, but they're facing violence 24 hours a day. Keith, I mean, you not only write for us, but you also write for Howard University News Service. Is that something you all are talking about on the campus at Howard?
Um, Not necessarily the curfew in DC, more of just so, how Howard students are trying to stay safe when navigating the city, especially if they're new here and they don't know the ins and outs of how the city works. Me personally, as long as it's about safety, then I understand it. Every time I go on social media late at night, I see videos of these many kids fighting or these people running or shootout here and stuff like that. Um, I do viewpoints weekly, and one of my viewpoints question is, what do you think the youth needs? And a lot of people in their responses were saying they need love, they need care, they need programming, they need grace. So maybe there's more that needs to be done. Maybe the curfew isn't the end all be all. But yeah, that's what I got to say on that.
Yeah. Okay. Richard's back. Thank you, Richard. I was going to add. I was asking you about the. I think the decision on the data center. Was that in Maryland?
So in Maryland, a few different jurisdictions are trying to do data center moratoriums. In Frederick County, they're doing a referendum. In Baltimore City, it's been proposed. In Baltimore County, it's been implemented. So a lot of the state has already either put in a moratorium or is planning to. In Prince George's, I believe that they are planning to. However, with the recent super sale of Six Flags, with Kevin Durant being involved in it, I think there's still a possibility of a data center ending up on that site. There's still way up in the air of what the Landover site could turn into, which in essence could only really be a hyperscale data center at its size. You know, not only is there the Landover community right there, there's also the Six Flags site. If Landover Mall were to be turned into a data center, there's tens of thousands of people in the impact area, and the Six Flags site will basically only be able to be sold and turned into another hyperscale data center. We
Hmm.
have all sorts of issues regarding energy use, regarding not only the gas prices that are rising really high now, but the likelihood in the coming years of not having enough energy generation to maintain the grid at all times. So to push forward with the data centers and not to add more nuclear power or other energy generation, I don't believe is a good idea, but it may just happen still.
Well, I know that that's also an environmental question.
Hmm.
It's also an economic question because people in the DMV have seen their utility rates skyrocket, and
Hmm.
many are blaming it on the data centers. I know, I believe, was it I don't know if it was your governor, Wes Moore, or the mayor. I'm kind of confused as to who wants those data centers now to pay their fair share of the cost of energy that they're using to run these data centers. I think they're legislatively approaching that. Was it Wes Moore, Richard? I'm not sure.
Well, the governor did create sort of like a fund in order to incentivize data centers around the state. For example, a legislator and their staffer told me about a data center proposed for Woodlawn in western Baltimore County, where like $1 million was put forward by the state. They asked for that money to be moved around. So the governor has absolutely been supporting data centers, but I believe that he's also been pushing for the nuclear generation needed to do it. Whereas the state senate president, who either him or his wife, they work in solar, so they are not as invested in the development of nuclear energy in Maryland as a direct result.
Wonderful. Folks, we are
And
about, oh, go ahead, Richard. You want to say something else?
one last point for so you already said it's an environmental issue, it's already an energy issue, it's already a water issue, it's also a labor issue. Data centers and AI are eating up the entry level jobs for graduates and young people entering the workforce. And as of yet, no solution has really been proposed by either political party or really by any major political candidates of what will be done when there are many, many, many people who are simply unemployable because there are not jobs for them.
Well, I'm glad you made that point because that's a conversation I know we've had a little bit about, but we need to talk more about because Stacey Brown, it goes back to the family. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
think this is a big thing. But speaking of family, and before we close, I want Keith to talk about, just his entree into journalism, working with the Washington Informer, and some of his experiences, the stories he's done. And before we close out, because you all are the big brother journalists, and I don't mean government big brother. I'm just saying big brother as in the sense of family, who have actually already traveled the path that Keith is on. And so, to end this call with a word of advice, or instruction to him as he graduates. Hey, 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 he's graduating in a couple of weeks from Howard University. So Keith, and Sam teaches at Howard. So say, Keith, give us a couple of minutes. Just talk about your journey.
Yeah, first things first, I want to say thank you to everybody within the Washington Informer. This was my first true journalism newsroom experience, and you guys took a chance on me. Y'all seen the photos I've done, the videos I've done, the stories I've written in my past, and you guys said, we can help him. And that's what you guys did. Now that I'm towards the end of this internship, I see that I found my voice within journalism. And that's something that I've been struggling a lot. And I've been struggling a lot with during my matriculation to adulthood. So big shout out to Misha for sitting down with me, literally being on the phone with me for 10, 20 minutes at a time, discussing how my stories can be better. Um, if I could talk a little bit about my stories, the first thing I want to talk about is the No King's Day protests, story that I collaborated with Jada Ingleton on. We posted it on October 20th. This was my first real chance to be like, okay, you are now in a newsroom. You are now considered a professional journalist. Now it's time for you to do the work. Now it's time for you to go into the crowd with your tripod and camera and talk to people, see what they think, tell the story. Seeing that in print, seeing my photos, it really cemented my mindset on everything that I want to do, I can do. Uh, the next one I want to talk about was the titles, blood, and breakthroughs at Care First Arena. It's a sports story. I'm not a sports guy. I used to play sports, but I don't like talking about sports in journalism. I feel like there's a million and one other topics I can speak on. But I've been in the business of trying to step outside my comfort zone and not only grow as a journalist, but grow as a person. I remember showing up there, I'm not knowing what I'm doing, what I'm going to talk about, what I'm going to take pictures of. So I'm talking to the OGs. Hey, what do you think? What is the story here? How should I operate? Some people gave me the gems. Other people was like, it's your story. Figure it out. So I ended up figuring it out, and I'm actually very proud of the work that I produce. The last thing that I do want to talk about, and I could talk about this for hours, but the last thing I'm going to talk about is viewpoints. So, for those who don't know, I do weekly viewpoints. I go out into the community with a question and I ask them, get different responses, take their picture, compile it up in a form. On March 11th, I went to do viewpoints about the US Iran war that was going on. And when I tell you, I talked to maybe 30 people just to get four responses. So many people didn't want to talk to me. They thought I was the feds. They thought I was an undercover agent. They're like, oh man, I don't want my picture taken. I don't want people knowing about me. Da 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 da, and that's okay. But it was a story that I felt like needed to be told, and that's something that I feel like is foundational within the Informer and in Black journalism in general, which is the story needs to be told. So yeah, as I'm embarking at the end of this journey and going on to my next step, I will never ever forget the foundation I built here. I'm literally so thankful that you guys took a chance on me, a kid from Riviera Beach of all that, just to be a storyteller with a dream. So yeah, thank you.
That's in Florida, right?
Yes, sir. Or yes, ma'am.
It's all right. It's all right. Well, we have certainly appreciated all your contributions, Keith. But I'm gonna start with Richard. What do you have to say to this graduating senior embarking on his career?
Keep learning, keep in contact with people, check in with your grandma as often as possible and mail her stuff. She'll appreciate it. And don't ever lose all of your past info, because when you can critique that well, it tells you you've been learning.
Thank you.
Fantastic, Stacey Brown.
Yeah, the fire, Keith, that you are displaying, have been displaying, don't lose it. Sometimes it seems to fizzle just a bit. When you see that happening, recharge. Take a minute, take a breath, recharge. Don't lose that fire, because there's too many people who are calling themselves journalists today that are not journalists. It's a different world in the world of journalism. But if you keep that fire, you'll be okay.
Thank you.
Sam P.K. Collins, professor.
Keith, keep doing you. You're very talented. You've been showing a lot of promise. Always, of course, stick to the facts, but rely on your perspective, on your instincts rather, right? And just keep chasing the story. Be relentless. It's always a pleasure seeing you in the Wilson building. Seeing you. I'm telling you, always got the camera in his hand. So just keep that up, man.
Yes,
Keep that
sir.
up.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody, man. I wouldn't be here without you guys.
Well, we'll talk about the next chapter and see where that goes. But I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I love this roundtable. I really would love to do this one day in person again. So we're going to have to get you to DC, Stacy. But just thank you all for all of your contributions, for your hard work. For those of you all who are in the viewing audience, I mean, feel free to, all their stories, photographs, everything are online. You can comment. Make sure you send those comments. They will respond, correct?
Correct.
To the comments, and share them. And if you have any story ideas for any of our team, just make sure you send that information to news, at washingtoninformer.com. That brings us to the end of this edition of Let's Talk. Gentlemen, have a wonderful day. Remember, we're going to start focusing on the family. We'll figure out when our editor, Misha Green, gives us the marching orders, and we want, again, our viewers to talk a little bit about that as well. So you all have a great weekend, and we will see you next week.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Peace.
All right, as we wrap up, it's clear that our team is committed to covering essential stories that matter to our communities, but locally and nationally. And each of you play a crucial role, and I appreciate the hard work that they do, but also the responses and the interaction that we get from you, our viewers and our readers. So we look forward to continuing this conversation. We will be having our reporters conversation, or we haven't called it a roundtable. We haven't given it a name yet, but we will be getting back together in May. So we'll let you know when that's going to happen. We thank you for your patience as we experiment with our new platform, Riverside. We'll see how that worked out, and in otherwise, hopefully, I'll see you at Emancipation Day this weekend. But have a wonderful weekend, and pull those sweaters out next week. It's going to get cold again. All right, talk to you later. This is Denise sounding off.